On behalf of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation Board, we welcome you today and thank the Clinton School of Public Service for hosting this important conversation. And we especially thank all of you for coming today. This is extremely exciting to see all of you, especially you folks who are in the business of making policy. We appreciate you coming out to discuss how to make tomorrow's jobs better than today's. Today we release Expect More Arkansas, Our Jobs, Our Future. Expect More is a call to action to our policymakers, to our community leaders, to our educators, and to ourselves. To expect more and do more to make Arkansas the state that we all want it to be. Governor Rockefeller once said, "There is no place for poverty in Arkansas." We totally agree. Arkansas has been at the bottom of rankings in educational attainment and economic opportunity for far too long. We have an opportunity to shape the future we all want and bring family-supporting jobs to Arkansas. Today, with the release of Expect More Arkansas, we ask you to make the choice for a better Arkansas and begin to expect more for ourselves, our children, and our future. To begin to understand what I'm talking about, let's take a moment to watch a video that explains what Expect More is about.
This is a tale about expectations. It's about choices we all make, sometimes earlier and sometimes later. This is about choices made by Arkansans like these two, Sam and Jesse. Both have hard-working, supportive parents. Both attend Arkansas schools. Both are above average, study well, and put forth the effort. They're motivated and excited to graduate and ready to get their lives going. But this is where their choices begin to split their paths. After graduating high school, Jesse decided it's just time to get a job. After all, it's what Jesse's father did, and it's a path many Arkansans take. Jobs that don't require any more than a high school diploma are plentiful in Arkansas. Only 30% require education after high school, which means upwards of 70% of our jobs don't require any further credentials whatsoever. And that 70-30 split is expected to stay the same, even as Arkansas adds over 500,000 new and replacement jobs over the next decade. 87% of those jobs pay less than a family-supporting wage and have no expectations for a highly skilled workforce. Without further education or training, jobs may be plentiful, but Jesse's prospects will be very limited. After all, only 23% of Arkansans get a degree after high school, and 19% live below the poverty line. When jobs don't pay family-supporting wages, hard work won't equal stability or financial security. Maybe Jesse didn't know how to expect more. Now, after graduating high school, Sam had a different goal in mind. With a similar desire to get to work and become self-sufficient, Sam also realizes it's a good choice to further his education, and so he seeks some guidance, so expectations won't be thrown off between whether to choose a vocational or technical pathway for skilled trade work or whether to attend college for a 2- or 4-year degree. Arkansas will be adding about 146,000 new jobs and 400,000 replacement jobs between 2013 and 2023. Skilled jobs in industries like biotechnology, health, finance, and energy will need educated workers like Sam. Since 2009, Arkansas is already seeing a 26% increase in the number of degrees awarded here, and we should still expect more. If more Arkansans aren't educated, potential jobs in fields like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics may wind up in other states. The key to keeping and growing high-skill, family-supporting jobs in Arkansas is more education. As more Arkansans become better educated, the number of skilled jobs in Arkansas will increase. And when Arkansans like Sam are ready, they can choose to get even more education to continue expanding their opportunities and potential. The same goes for Jesse. If motivated, he can always find training and certification in the kind of work that can be rewarding, and family supportive too. You see, more education can equal more opportunity, and the right kind of education and training will equal better opportunity. If we can expect the support of an education system that produces lifelong learners ready to learn, communities that work together to prepare a workforce, businesses that pay their employees family-supporting wages, and a skilled workforce that stays and reinvests in Arkansas, we can prepare to equip ourselves to flip our 70-30 split and change our higher expectations into hireable expectations. Because more jobs are coming to our state. With higher expectations, we can expect those high-wage jobs to come to Arkansas and stay in Arkansas. Then we can choose to expect more from our state and from ourselves.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Brown, and I'm a Senior Program Director with MDC, which is based in Durham, North Carolina. And the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation asked us, MDC, a nonprofit with nearly 50 years of experience working in workforce and economic development, a specific question. They wanted us to examine the current picture of jobs in the state of Arkansas. And specifically, what we were asked to do is determine where there is currently a gap between available jobs and the workforce needed to fill those vacancies. And as the video showed, we learned that there are a lot of jobs and more jobs are coming. But as we did our research, we learned a lot more, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about and echo what you just heard in the video. And the real critical issue we want to focus on is, are the jobs that are being created good jobs? And so how do we define what a good job is? For the purpose of this study, we took a look at jobs that pay a family-sustaining wage. And we used a family-sustaining wage figure that is for something that can support a family that consists of one adult and one child. And that is, at the time when we did the study, it was $16.37 an hour. And as we will show, there's a direct correlation to jobs that require high skills and jobs that pay family-supporting wages. So in Arkansas, in 2013, nearly 70% of jobs were low-skill jobs that required only a high school diploma or less, meaning that only 30% of jobs required a post-secondary credential. And I should emphasize that includes not just a bachelor's degree, but an associate's degree or a certificate that you might get from a community college. So the problem with this is that most low-skilled jobs are also low-wage jobs. 87% of jobs that pay less than a family-supporting wage are those that don't require education beyond high school. All this means, when we look at this together, that in 2013, fully 65% of the jobs in the state did not meet the yearly threshold of a family-supporting wage. So as I mentioned, and as the video showed, there are jobs in Arkansas and more are coming. 546,000 jobs, with 148,000 being new jobs and 400,000 due to an aging and retiring workforce. So the problem is, if the industrial and occupational forecast in the state holds to form, the trend of a low-wage and low-skilled job picture is likely to continue. And so by 2023, we forecast that that same 70-30 split will remain. That means that 70% of the jobs will only require a high school diploma or less for entry. Whoops. I knew that would happen once. So while changing educational patterns can lead to better paying jobs, there are other areas of concern. For instance, one of the fastest growing sectors in Arkansas, like a lot of other states, is in the health science field. In this sector, over 56% of jobs are in occupations that require some level of post-secondary credential to entry. But even within this category of credentials, there are many jobs that do not pay a living wage. This includes rapidly growing occupations such as medical records and health information technicians and medical and clinical laboratory technicians, high-skilled jobs that do not pay a family-sustaining wage. Oops, God, I keep on doing that. There we go. A few other important things I want to leave you with. One is, we've been talking a lot about data from 2013. It's no longer 2013, but we firmly believe that the trends are staying the same. A quick look at the updated data, not much has changed, and in fact, due to increases in family, what has been calculated to be the family supporting wage, it's likely that the number could even be higher. Family sustaining wage for one adult and one child is $19.29 now, which is about almost $3 more than when we first ran those numbers. So if steps aren't taken to reverse these trends, Arkansas is likely to be an economy that is dominated by low-skill, low-wage jobs. One thing to stress, though, Arkansas is not alone. The low-wage, low-skill economy is an issue throughout the South. MDC is just finishing a study of economic mobility in North Carolina, which raises similar concerns about the low-wage jobs in our state. And as you can see by the map, the states with the most jobs for high school dropouts are in the South, while the opportunities for growth with those with a bachelor's degree or above are in the North and the Midwest. But there is positive news, and as the video suggested, Arkansas is growing the number of people who have post-secondary credentials. From 2009 to 2013, the number of Arkansans with post-secondary credentials increased by nearly 26%. And this is especially important because the nature of work may be changing. More and more companies are requiring higher credentials for entry. If Arkansas wants to continue to attract more of these types of jobs, they will need to continue this upward trend in post-secondary credentials. So now we're going to move to a video that's going to talk a little bit about, set the stage for what you as a state can do to address these real challenges.
Arkansas is a great place to be from.
But we have the potential to be more.
That starts with expecting more. As business owners, we expect skilled and determined employees.
As teachers, we expect all students to be prepared for new job opportunities.
As policymakers, we expect to attract and keep high-skilled jobs right here in our state.
More jobs are coming to Arkansas. That's good news, and it's going to help a lot of people.
But 70% of these jobs are predicted to be low-skill and pay low wages.
But if we act now, that doesn't have to be our future.
We have a choice.
We can. We must.
Expect more for Arkansas's future.
We can't settle for futures lived paycheck to paycheck.
We must invest in employees who are hungry to learn, not just with degrees from universities and community colleges, but with apprenticeships and certifications for valuable skills.
None of us can do this alone.
We all must expect more, do more. We find the skills businesses need, and we make sure our students have those skills.
We make sure our employees build on their education and skills through a lifetime of learning.
We create state and local policies that make sure colleges and businesses can build the skilled workforce that Arkansas deserves. Knowing the jobs that we want in our state and investing in those jobs.
Knowing the jobs we want for our students and investing in their abilities.
Knowing the jobs we want for our future and investing in our employees.
It starts with a vision. A growing Arkansas.
A thriving Arkansas.
A prosperous Arkansas.
If we're ready to expect
more from ourselves,
we can expect more for Arkansas.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherece West-Scantlebury. I have the privilege and honor of being the president and CEO of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation and your moderator for this panel discussion. We have on the panel with us Randy Zook. Randy, you got to wave. Okay. Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce, Melissa Rivers, who is with the East Arkansas Planning and Development District, Toyce Newton, who is on our State Board of Education, Phoenix, and Executive Director of Phoenix Youth Services, and a former chair of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation Board of Directors, and Daryl Bissett, who is the is a commissioner, director of the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services. So join me in welcoming them for this conversation. So what Dan laid out and presented were very powerful data and projections, right? And we need data to inform the conversation. We need data to inform the conversation. But we also know that emotion informs this conversation a great deal too, right? You know, wanting to expect more and needing more from ourselves, our citizens, our future, can be very emotional because that gets into issues of workforce development. That gets into issues of quality of education that's being provided here in Arkansas. That gets into issues of what employers we are attracting or not attracting to the state of Arkansas. So, you know, the data drives it, but there's also some other things that drive it too. But data informs, we determine, okay? So I don't know if we can make that a bumper sticker or not, but that is important to say here. Data informs, but we can change this. And so what we want to have a conversation about today is how do we change this? We're informed by what the challenge is, and we now have hard data on what the challenge is. But we determine and we direct how this can change for us here in Arkansas. So that's where I want to lead the conversation. And I want to say that because, you know, as you guys think about your questions and join in the conversation, we do not want soliloquies about what's bad. We do not need soliloquies. I'm going to cut you off now. Soliloquies about how horrible and the like, okay? We know that we're challenged. We know that this is a chronic historical problem for our state. And we know we want to change it. And we know there are barriers to changing it, but we know we need and want to change it. So if we can, let's keep the conversation to what do we need to do, what can we do, and how we work together to get there. So Randy, I'm going to start with you. One of the things that Dan pointed out, and if you don't mind, if I might give a small bit of history on how we even embarked on this. So Randy has been a partner of the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation for a long time. He's older than me, by the way. Randy has been a partner of the foundation for some time, and he asked the foundation if we would do a third-party objective study on the data on jobs in Arkansas. We hear a lot about the skills mismatch, so we actually embarked on that study to ask the question, are there jobs in Arkansas? And the answer is yes, there are jobs in Arkansas. But what the data found once MDC and we got into it is, what is the quality? What are those jobs? What does that mean? And thus you see the 70-30 split. So Randy, what is your response to this data? And first off, affirm that there are jobs in Arkansas. And you talked to us a bit about what jobs there are in Arkansas. And maybe we can inform folks what those jobs currently are. And then talk to us about what role business plays in flipping this 70-30 equation.
I'm a lot older than Sherece. I'm so old that I've gotten to the point where I really don't give a damn what people think about what I have to say. So my job today is to be provocative. I was given that task by Reagan. Be provocative. So fasten your seatbelt. Yes, there are jobs in Arkansas. Not only are there jobs, but there are good jobs, many of which, sort of a frightening number of which go unfilled and and businesses go begging for lack of talent, adequately prepared people for the jobs that are available. What am I talking about? Things like diesel technicians. There probably are 5,000 opportunities in Arkansas to hire into businesses of one sort or another as diesel technicians, and those jobs pay anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000 a year. There's probably a like number of skilled welders needed and placeable in Arkansas at about the same wage range, somewhere north of $50,000 up to 100 or 100+ thousand per year. You cannot believe what truck drivers are making today and how many truck driver positions are open and available right now. Walmart runs radio ads advertising truck driver jobs starting at $82,000 a year. Now, I use those as examples. There are lots more, and South Arkansas chemical and refinery employees average $80,000 to $100,000 a year, depending on the business. They're screaming for people. I hear this from manufacturers all across the state, nearly daily, but certainly weekly. I can't find the people I need. I can't find the people I need. And I'm not going to moan about employability skills. We know how frustrating those are. I think the good news out of this study is that we can make choices. We do have very clearly identifiable choices that we can make. For instance, what kind of choices? It just ought to be against the law to let a kid get to 4th grade who can't read at 3rd grade level from this point on.
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
This whole thing is fraught with good news, because the good news is we know what to do. It's not like we have to figure this out. We just have to find the political will to do it and the economic resources to make it happen. So, long story short, there are good jobs. There will continue to be good jobs. There will be more good jobs available in Arkansas. We can flip the 30-70 thing, but I was heartened to see in the video the point about the right skills, the right training. You can't just come out of college today with a 4-year degree and expect to go to work making $50,000 to $60,000 or $70,000 or $100,000 a year with a degree in general studies. I'm sorry, that and a $5 bill will get you a cup of coffee at most Starbucks. You've got to have the right skills. We're screaming for engineers. We're screaming for chemists. We're screaming for all kinds of technical skill preparation, business, healthcare. All of these fields are ripe with opportunity. There are going to be great jobs available, but kids have to be ready to do the kind of work that's available, not just, you know, there's not much demand for astronauts in Melbourne. So if you want to live in Melbourne, my hometown, and be an astronaut, you're going to have to be willing to go somewhere. It's just not going to happen for you in Melbourne. So those are some of the other issues that we deal with, is physical dislocation or sort of misallocation of the right skills for the right places. But again, these things can be fixed, and I think we're making enormous progress. The fact that all of us are in this room is a very big step forward, even though we all look awfully familiar. You know, it's generally the same people in most cases, but we're growing. This crowd would not have come together 4 or 5 years ago on this subject. So I think that's heartening.
Toyce, I want to ask you, so in terms of the work that you do at Phoenix, and I know that, you know, trying to get young people in particular employed and good opportunities and apprenticeships and the like. Tell us a bit about what your experiences are and what you guys do, and what you're doing on this 70-30 split, your ideas on it.
First of all, I'd like to say, before I answer your question directly, I think in response to Randy's comment that there has to be an intentional strategic alignment between everybody that's in the room in terms of those folks that impact young people and the jobs that are out there and the potential for everyone to succeed and have successful lives. And in doing that, I think that we should remember that the internet and that the television makes visible to all of us lives that are not attainable in most instances to people in Arkansas, but not necessarily the feeling is everybody wants to be there. I know when I started my job development at Phoenix, I would point to the Cosby family. And I'd say simply, everybody wants to be that family. The opportunity to get there should be everybody's equally. But what we try to do, what we found in my work in Southeast Arkansas, is that everyone will rise to the expectation or the level that's set. we found almost without exception, not everyone, but most young people and families want better and will do better. It is incumbent upon us as service providers to provide an opportunity. One thing I try to stress in the community that we can't bring one segment of the community along and feel that we're going to be successful without bringing everyone. So we have to look at young kids that are in the classes that provide the elevated access to information, also look at those in the middle, and also look at those that are coming behind. I stress to business leaders, Randy, in my community, that it takes everybody. So we can't marginalize any population. I see Director Devine is here, and I'm glad to see him here because we work with them, with young people in juvenile justice. And the roles are swelling. We can't afford to not engage this group of young people with everyone else. So what we try to do in our work in Southeast Arkansas is be inclusive and realize that everyone wants a better quality of life. And if given the opportunity and the resources, then families, along with their children, respond to better opportunities and seize the opportunities. But what we found is that the support has to be there both from the community, from the schools, from the business community, and from the communities at large.
Mm-hmm. So if you could, in your particular community, and then I'm going to ask Melissa the same thing, what needs to change? Is it attitudes need to change? Is it policies that need to change? Is it, just give a young person a chance? What is it that needs to change?
I think all of the above. I think that our system has been geared to getting rid of the problem, whether it's at the workforce or whether it's at school, not realizing that problems never leave the communities. Problems just stay there and fester. So I think the attitude, and I feel the attitudes of schools, and I speak from the standpoint of being the chair of the State Board of Education, that unless we can change the way of thinking, unless we can have the school systems and the communities value every young person or family as a contributing part of that community, then we cannot change the cycle. See, we can't pull out or carve out a section of folks that we want to succeed. We have to have everyone be a part of the problem, but be a part of the solution, that they're a part of the problem. Expect more needs to involve strategic planning. It needs to, we need to expect more by working harder, or we get less.
And Melissa, along the same lines, what can communities do to increase the number of family supporting jobs? What can communities do? What can a region do?
Well, I can tell you, I agree with both Ms. Newton and Randy, especially the literacy at grade 3. That's critical. But to me, as I was thinking through the question, ownership is critical. And that means household ownership, that means community ownership, leadership ownership, and business ownership. I can remember, I was speaking with Danny Games on the way over here. I can remember going into kindergarten, one of my earliest memories. My dad was a car mechanic at a Volkswagen dealership, and I lived in a poor part of Memphis, and my dad stood me in front of him. He was getting me ready, and he said, "You are going to go to school, you are going to go to college, and you are going to do better than I did. You're going to have more opportunity, and I'm going to make sure of it." My dad took ownership of my future at that point, and that is a touchstone moment for me in my life. The unfortunate thing that we have in our communities is that we have many households that have lived in this situation chronically for generations. They no longer know how to take ownership of their future. The children no longer are equipped to take ownership of their future. But it takes all of us. It takes the education system. It takes the business community. It takes leaders. And the work that we've done in Eastern Arkansas over the past 5 years, one of the biggest gaps that we've identified in economic development strategic planning is a gap in leadership and capacity. And so I think we have to be intentional about how we take ownership of our future. What is our path? What is it going to take for us to be successful? And how do we take responsibility for that inside our communities and as leaders. But I think it's going to take cooperative systems innovation. And what I mean by that is it's not enough to say we're going to align the education system with the workforce system, with the economic development system, and keep the systems as they are and not be willing to modify those systems to be responsive to the workforce and to the demands of the workforce by business. And so one of the things that East Arkansas Planning is doing, we're partnering with the Delta Regional Authority to impact all 12 of our Eastern Arkansas counties on Career Ready certification. We've launched 5 counties. We've got 7 counties we're about to launch. The 5 that have launched, of them, the majority are well over 50% of their goal. So again, you set that expectation, you encourage the leadership to take ownership, engage the community, and they will reach that point. So, and I think finally, we have to change the value proposition of how we expect to sell our communities. So if you look at the map that showed the southeastern Arkansas business growth, we are going to gain jobs in, I said Arkansas, in the southeastern United States. We've had the highest concentration of site selection announcements since the recession. Manufacturing is growing. But if you look at how this region of the country has sold itself over the past 20 years, our value proposition in economic development has been low-wage workers.
Right.
We've sold that.
And we've even heard anecdotally that employers come here because we are a low-wage state.
Right. And so,
So we sell ourselves that way, as you
we sell ourselves that way. And so, but we've got to change not just the value proposition, but the quality of product that we are selling, and not to be insensitive to the fact that I'm referring to our workforce as a product. But when you're in the economic development world, that is the product you're selling, along with your infrastructure and your place. Is the workforce is the largest piece of their investment, and it generates the largest part of their return. And so how do we, as a state, as a region, as a community, retool our product to gain a better return for ourselves? We have to engage in the conversation just in the same way that that business is conducting their due diligence. Our due diligence has to be just as deep and as extensive.
I mean, so that requires some boldness, right? So that requires saying to a potential employer, no, you can't come here because we're not paying that wage here. No, that's not acceptable. But are we willing to do that, right? Because then that means not getting an employer to our area. Doing the, overselling ourselves in what we can offer an employer does us a disservice, because then people get here and feel that, we can't meet up to the standards. So, Daryl, I want to ask you, like, for this kind of systems change that Randy, Melissa, and Toyce just laid out, like, what can we do? Like, what can happen? What does the system need to do differently? What is the radicalness? What is that bold step that we need to do?
A good friend of mine, Jim Pickens, he's gone on now, was actively involved in economic development back in the 90s. And Jim said, had a saying he was very fond of as he went across the state talking to different communities about economic development, and that was that every community needs to, come to some kind of understanding of what they want to be when they grow up. And nothing could be truer. I think what we do when we look at the kind of figures that come out in this report, I think really we can look at them in a good way, because what it does is it clarifies and crystallizes an issue. And when you do that, what we really need to do is look at our expectations. Whether we're talking about a kid in K through 16 or a non-traditional student who's decided to come back to work or whatever, we need to raise our level of expectations. And how do we do that? Well, expectations define our horizons. And we do that with, I think, regional approaches. What's good for Northeast Arkansas is not going to be good for Southwest Arkansas, or Northwest. What's good there is not going to be good for Southeast Arkansas. And what we've got to do is decide what we want to be when we grow up. What kind of communities do we want to be? Or how are we selling those regional concepts? And I think that's important. What we've started to do in Arkansas is collaborate in a way that we've not collaborated in the past, which means a change in the way that state government works. We can no longer afford to continue to work in silos, each state agency working as it sees fit. We've got to work in a collaborated approach. Now, we're talking about a common thing, and of course, Randy's heard this many times. We need to be business driven. Well, we say that a lot, but are we business driven? What does it take to be business driven? We've got to really concern ourselves with sitting down with business in an outreach way and asking them, what kind of worker do you need? And then it has to come back on the other side. I mean, business has to communicate back to state agencies and tell us specifically what skills. I was at a meeting at Pettigene just the other day, and I had a group of businessmen sitting in front of me, and they all basically were companies that dealt with welding. And each business owner or manager there had a different idea of the kind of welder that he wanted to bring into his business, which is okay because they each have different functions. But each of them said to a man, Mr. Bassett, we can't find workers. Well, there's no reason, there's no wonder they can't find workers if there's not a common message coming back to the educational institutions who are providing those workers. So there has to be, we have to get on the same page. And you talk about changes, that has to change. Our conversations have to change. How our educational institutions are interacting with business, that has to change. How our state agencies are interacting with each other, that has to change. If we have resources at one agency that can be utilized better in another agency, we have to have the political determination to make that happen. Because we can't, I know we saw good figures the other day about revenue, but this is not a bottomless pit. We can't continue to tax the taxpayer to fund for training programs where we're training to hope. And we've been doing a lot of that in Arkansas. We've been putting an awful lot of money into programs where we're training and hoping that somehow that student will find a job. That kind of shotgun approach just won't work in this competitive environment. We've got to be more rifled in our training approach. We've got to basically get a job order and then train to that job. Now, I know some will say, gosh, that's like teaching to the test. Exactly. It's kind of how it works in this environment. I've got a company right now that tells me he can hire as many welders as we can turn out. And he can't find them. Same with pipe fitters, same with plumbers, same with electricians. As many as we can turn out, they can't find them. What's wrong with teaching to those tests?
So, and that's talking about the present. So I want to ask each one before we go to the audience about projecting to the future. So we saw biotechnology, we saw health fields up there, we saw agriculture, scientists, a lot of the knowledge-based jobs that Dan talked about that's coming on board, 546,000 or so. All of them are going to require some credential to be family supporting. So today we have this 70-30. Tomorrow we want to change that. So just quickly down the line, solution, like what is your, tell this audience and tell us what you believe is that one or two things.
Let's Arkansas be Arkansas. Let's not compare Arkansas to California or North Carolina. Let's not try to be a research triangle. Let's look at what we do best. Let's look at the corporations in our state and the corporations that we want to try to attract. Let's look at our current resources and let's see what it's going to take for us to be the best Arkansas we can be, and stop comparing ourselves with other surrounding states or other regions that may or may not be similarly situated. Let's concentrate on being the best Arkansas we can be.
One of the things I see that's very encouraging from an educational standpoint is that many schools in Arkansas are realigning their curriculums or rethinking their curriculums to align with schools of education that include basic education, those kids that are going on to college, those that are looking for careers, and those looking at technical careers, and having those departments within their high school. So we see a lot of that, and I'd like to see that extended where that's available, also to the point of young people being able to leave school, high school, with credits for college, and in some instances with associate degrees. I think we have to capture our young people where they are, and primarily where they are in any environment, wherever they are in the state, is at school at one time or the other. There is an opportunity for us to pique their interest in different jobs and different careers that are in our area, because one of the things that we have in Southeast Arkansas is a great number of out-migration, and we want to stop that. We can't continue to build our communities and expect more if our young people are leaving for better jobs. So I see this trend in high schools, and some as early as junior high school, and I think that's going to be a very good model to have developed, because sometimes it's the only place that you can get the advanced training is in the local school. The future, what do you recommend see as a solution?
I think we have to build on existing successes. We've been very successful in different areas around this, and so I think we have to identify those. If you look in Eastern Arkansas, the AdTech Community College collaboration, we're working with Warwick with the Innovation Hub. We just were got an announcement this week for an I-6 Challenge grant from EDA to do an Innovation Hub in Eastern Arkansas. EAPDD is going to be partnering with that to provide rural satellite hubs to feed into that regional hub, creating exposure for innovation opportunities that kids otherwise wouldn't have. And so, and then, working with things like the College Initiative, where they work with kids from the 9th grade to prepare and create that expectation that they not only can make it into college, they can make it into the college that they want to make it into, technical training as well. So I think we have to build on existing successes. I think we have to streamline and have courageous leadership on a local, regional, and state level, and think outside the box a little bit and create an ecosystem of growth. I think for rural regions, I can only speak to Eastern Arkansas. I can't speak to the other regions. A focus on small to mid-sized business development and creating an opportunity for the folks that live inside those communities and the youth that live inside those communities to think outside the box and have access to resources to build businesses in place. Not only help stave off that out-migration, but also create an innovative economy in places that there is probably not one at this point.
All of the above, and one added thought, just to put this on the table. We have got, look, I know we always want to blame the school system. Education is responsible for every ill and shortcoming in society and the way we talk about it in Arkansas, which is obviously not true. But we have to raise our expectations from the K-12 system. We have to have community leadership starting at school boards that will not tolerate a lot of what we tolerate in Arkansas in terms of educational performance. We just can't have 20% of our kids continue to fail to graduate from high school. That number's got to be in the low 90s at least if we're going to compete with these other states. And we always have to remember, we have to hold ourselves up to real competition. We stuck our toe in the water and we got up to the PARC test and Common Core, and oh wait, that hurts.
Right.
This is painful. You mean our kids are not all above average? Oh my God, we can't have this.
And
so let's do away with the PARC test.
I took algebra and I don't need algebra.
Yeah.
Well, why are we still doing it?
Why are we still arguing about algebra?
Over what we need,
But the school systems, in communities. If you want a community to thrive, it must have an exceptional public school system or it has no chance of thriving. It's that simple in terms of community development, business development. A good school system is producing kids capable of doing whatever opportunity presents itself. And that's where it starts, and that's where we've got to have even more attention.
Mm-hmm. So we want to open it up to conversations. We just have a short amount of time. Gina, did I see your hand up? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
I think with all this conversation, it's really important to take into account that we definitely need to be inclusive. From Melissa's experience, you were lucky that you have your dad that was able to guide you. When you think about immigrant families with a low level of education that come here, and you always, even with not a low level of education, because it's my own experience, you come here to a new education system that you don't know how it works. When you have kids that are not having the same opportunities, when they cannot afford to receiving a state tuition, when they are not expecting anything else than graduating from high school because there are not other options, we are not helping to the future. We are not providing those kids with the same opportunities, and we need to look into that. It is important also to look into the information that we are providing to those families. I know that the schools have a lot of responsibility, but also we as families need to encourage our kids to keep educating themselves, to look forward to those four-year careers, or maybe if we have kids that are not looking forward to a four-year careers, they have to feel very proud about going to plumbing, going to welding, on those careers that sometimes is not what parents are expecting, but those are there and much needed. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes, please. Yes.
I'd like to respond to that because I think, as being from my past of being a part of the Rockefeller Foundation, I know we were, as a foundation, were very deliberate in engaging community-based organizations and individuals all across the state, because we realized that all young people won't get the message about getting a skill or getting a career, going to college, but it's equally important for all young people to do that. So I think you'll see that there's a strategic investment from the foundation standpoint and likely other foundations. But it's our responsibility equally, because we're all a part of a community. It doesn't mean the street that you live on, but it means that we're a part of a community. And my philosophy is that every young person should have a caring adult in their life. This doesn't necessarily mean a family member. It doesn't necessarily mean a church person, but that is the way that we have operated locally with our nonprofit and community-based program, because we're oftentimes the people that have to go to the schools for the conferences. Our staff has to do that. So absent individuals that have family members that encourage them, there still is an opportunity for each of us to encourage someone to achieve what we call the American dream. Now, the American dream is different for all of us. American dream might be attaining a seat in the Senate for some, but it might be doing community work for others, but everybody has a right and opportunity to do that. And I think that in addition to community organizations that do that, we can also do it individually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm James Hendren with Accelerate Arkansas, the STEM Coalition, the Venture Center, and the Governor's Task Force on Computer Science. And I want to mention some of those kind of jobs. The kind of jobs you're talking about, we absolutely need to fill. We also have right now open, available, over 2,000 computer science jobs. These are the $100,000 kind of jobs. In the last 5 or 10 years, we have had large corporations in Arkansas that have huge computer sciences, opening offices in Austin, Nashville, Atlanta, San Francisco areas, only because that workforce was not available in Arkansas. probably at least 10,000 of these high-paying jobs. And these jobs are available to anybody from any demographic graphic situations in Arkansas. So I think I agree completely with what Randy said about we've got to get activity on the school boards and let people know that these kind of jobs are even available in Arkansas. The kids don't even think about these unless they happen to be in an area where those kind of companies exist. Another thing that happens in college, we all know we're building this situation now where a lot of kids come out of school with huge debt, and that situation is especially difficult for some of the rural constituencies that go through there. We have a plan on the books through Department of Career Ed that can help with some help with that debt if they take a job in certain categories, computer science is included, in Arkansas, helps relieve some of that debt. It's not funded very well. So there's a lot of those kind of things that can do, but I'd like to hear a comment on the opportunity for computer science jobs in Arkansas.
So I know we are running out of time. Brett, would you mind, since a lot of implication for higher ed and colleges were made, if you had any thoughts or comments that you wanted to weigh in on, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but...
I didn't realize that higher ed had been mentioned here. I guess I wasn't paying attention. No, there have been so many comments that I wanted to say absolutely amen. There's a gap in everything that has been mentioned, from basic employability skills to trade skills to STEM skills, and there's definitely there's plenty of work to do, I guess is the message there. And it's just a matter of starting to make some progress, and how can we make some small changes that can build into big changes. And so, that's the thing that we at the Department of Higher Ed have been trying to work with institutions on, is what minor shifts can we make that can make a difference for students? How can we get students better prepared for whatever their career goals are once they leave high school, whether that's directly into a trade, or if that's going on to a degree, or once we get them enrolled, how do we make sure they complete a certificate or a degree? And there are many things that we can focus on that can make some small changes, and over time those can build into something more significant. But I think there's a couple paths that we have to start thinking about, and one of those is we have, our best estimate is about 260,000 underskilled adults in our state who, if we got them the right credentials, they could take all these jobs that have been mentioned. So we've got to reach those people and make sure they understand where those jobs are and what it's going to take for them to take those jobs. And then we've got to start, third grade was mentioned, we could start at third grade or seventh grade or wherever it is to make sure that kids coming out of our high schools understand what the opportunities are for them and how they can take advantage of those opportunities. And so we've got to start both as young as we can and as old as we can, I guess, and everybody in between, to make sure they understand that really education is the key to making those changes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, we are out of time. Thank you, panel, for giving us and sharing your thoughts. Thank you all for being here. So as you know, we have been informed of this data. The Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation is actually working on Expect More as a campaign. And you will see much about that over the course of the next couple of years. We plan to do this not just as a public will-building campaign, but we also plan to fund and support nonprofits and communities in a coordinated, systemic, intentional way. So this is not going to be willy-nilly grant making and hoping that we get something different, but in a systemic, intentional way to contribute to this conversation on Expect More from a community level, from a public policy conversation, and again, using the data to mobilize and incent some action. So we've been informed, but also we determined we can change the 70-30. We can change this in our communities, with our own kids, with even challenging the systems. If the business system isn't working on our behalf, we have voice. We can challenge that so that it does. To be the best Arkansas, I really like the way you talked about that. Let Arkansas be the best Arkansas. For Arkansas to be the best Arkansas, we need to challenge what's happening that is preventing us from getting that 70-30 so that we can make that change. So one, there is a call to action for you all to participate in this Expect More campaign. Participate may mean a lot of meetings, but it's also going to mean a lot of action and a lot of talking together and working in a coordinated way. We plan to take on that charge. We also want you guys to actually talk about this data in your communities with your relatives, friends, anybody who will hear it, so that we can, when you know what the problem is, hopefully you can address it. So let's not be in denial about being a chronically working poor state. We are, and we have been. We need to stop. We need to cease and desist doing that. And we need to cease and desist whatever is contributing to that. And we need to do our part to make sure that happens. So this is very heady and heavy, but it can also be fun work. So one thing we want to ask you guys to do most immediately is post to our Facebook page what it is you will do to expect more. So I'm going to demonstrate. Wait, Russ, where'd you go? So take your phone and do a video of yourself saying what you will expect. So I'm going to record. Oh, that's my picture. Okay, first get a friend to help you. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I expect more Arkansans to get credentialed so that we can have livable wage jobs in our state. Did I do it right? Okay. All right. So go to our Facebook page, and you will see that as the first video on the Facebook page. But we want to begin dialogue through social media, dialogue in community. So we want to ask each of you to do the same. What you expect more? What do you expect from us? Because again, we got to set a vision. We got to set a North Star for what we can expect so that we can use our time, energy, and resources to get there. So with that, thank you so much. And I ask you to expect more from us, meaning the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation over the coming years, but we also expect more from all of us in this room as we make this 70-30 split different. Thank you.